The Corellian medical cruiser Eminent Inquiry drifted through the void, an obsidian blade of science and detachment. Staffed by one of the most prestigious xenomedical teams in the Galactic Consortium, it was the pinnacle of alien curiosity, cold, clinical, and fearless. The Corellians had dissected hundreds of species across the stars, from the silicon-skinned Cornyx to the energy-based Thillarine. But today, they had something far more controversial laid out on the surgical slab. A human. Officially, humans were not to be touched. An ancient galactic edict, unspoken yet absolute, had grown around their species. Rumors swirled through scientific channels of humans being deathworlders, unpredictable and dangerous even in death. But those were dismissed as primitive superstition by the higher academic echelons. The Eminent Inquiry had obtained the body, through unofficial means after a Terran strike team was annihilated in a classified encounter near a forbidden sector. One corpse had been recovered, preserved and sealed in stasis. No identifying markers, no known implants. A clean slate for dissection. Dr. Zalthir, the ship's chief xenobiologist, stood over the table, his three-lobed brain buzzing with anticipation. "Begin preliminary scans," he ordered in a voice free of emotion. A thin curtain of transluminal sensors swept over the human form. Immediately, anomalies registered. "Readings are inconsistent," his assistant chirped, concern threading into her normally tranquil voice. "Subject's neural activity. There's a faint resonance, and multiple. Redundant organ systems. The immune signature is still fluctuating. Residual energy. Expected from a death worlder," Zalthir replied. "Begin tissue sampling." Robotic arms descended from the ceiling armed with precision tools. They made the first incision just below the sternum. What should have been a clean cut instead released, a strange black ichor that hissed when it touched surgical metal. Muscle fibers beneath the skin twitched as though resisting the blade, even in death. Zalthir's secondary hearts began to accelerate. "It's reactive," murmured his assistant. "The blood cells are restructuring. That should not be possible without neural command." "Continue," Zalthir snapped, unwilling to be swayed by fear. "Catalog every reaction." The team dug deeper. Every layer they cut revealed more impossibilities. Fibers that regenerated, nerve bundles that flared with dormant heat, and nanoscopic motes clinging to their tools like static parasites. The scanners began to flicker. Power drained unnaturally, fast. "Bio-nanite activity confirmed," another assistant called. "But these are unlike anything cataloged. They're responding to us." Then the human's spine arched on the table. The entire surgical bay froze. For 3 seconds, the corpse held itself upright, eyelids fluttering. The eyes opened, revealing irises that pulsed with crimson light. Every Corellian surgeon took a step back. "Impossible," Zalthir whispered. The body collapsed again, but the room had already begun to change. Alarms flickered to life. Atmospheric filtration systems failed. The chamber's AI glitched, displaying corrupted code interspersed, with a single repeating Terran phrase, "You shouldn't have opened me." Now surrounded by unpredictable biological phenomena, corrupted tech and creeping dread, the once confident surgeons were forced to consider a terrifying truth. This wasn't just a body. It was a trap, and they had sprung it. Panic had no place. Aboard the Eminent Inquiry, until now. The surgical bay, once a pristine sanctuary of science, was devolving into chaos. The human body on the operating table had briefly moved, arched unnaturally, its eyes flaring open with an intelligent crimson glow. The lights flickered, monitors bled static, and the phrase, "You shouldn't have opened me," repeated across every screen, written in both Terran script and Corellian glyphs, as if the ship itself was now speaking through the dead. Lead surgeon Zalthir attempted to reassert control. "Seal the chamber. Initiate neural suppression field. Stabilize all active biosignatures." But nothing responded correctly. The neural suppression field refused to initialize. Instruments powered down mid-operation. The human's tissue, instead of lying inert, had become hyper-responsive. Incisions closed behind the blades. Blood reacted like it was alive, not metaphorically, but biologically autonomous. Samples placed into containment immediately began to spread, adapting to containment fields, burning through glass, and crawling toward warmth. Assistant Velix approached the slab to reclamp a muscle retractor when a pulse of liquid sprayed from the chest cavity, dark, viscous, and shimmering with motes of suspended light. It struck her faceplate. She staggered back, screaming as her helmet rapidly fogged and then shattered from within. Her skin blistered with unnatural speed, and she dropped to the floor, convulsing violently. The surgical team rushed to restrain her. Zalthir looked down in horror as Velix's vital signs shot beyond Corellian norms, heart rates quadrupling, bone density readings fluctuating, and her skin beginning to darken and pulse in strange, geometric patterns. "She's mutating," someone whispered. "No," Zalthir said grimly. "She's assimilating." They attempted to quarantine her body, but she fought with inhuman strength, launching 2 orderlies across the room before finally collapsing, not unconscious, but smiling. The smile wasn't hers. It was human. Meanwhile, the corpse on the slab had begun to twitch rhythmically. The brain, which should have been inert, lit up with neural activity off the charts. Synapses flared as if memory was reconstructing itself. The spinal cord, exposed during the autopsy, fused back together. Bones snapped into place, blood vessels stitched. The body was rebuilding itself at terrifying speed. Surgeon Elnar tried to reinitiate cryostasis on the body, but the stasis pod's interior was covered in some sort of biological mesh, grown from the human's blood and tissue, that rejected entry and fused the pod shut. An electric shock emitted from the contact point, knocking Elnar out cold. Desperate, Zalthir ordered a deep scan of the remains. What came back defied logic. The human cells were interlaced with adaptive nanotechnology at the mitochondrial level, so advanced it could rewrite organic code in real time. This wasn't a normal Terran. It was a designed entity, an artificial revenant engineered to mimic death until it was disturbed. And now, it was awake. "This isn't a specimen," Zalthir said, his voice shaking. "It's a biological Trojan horse." Suddenly, shipwide systems began to fail. Gravity wavered. Doors locked and unlocked randomly. The lights dimmed to a pulsing red. The medical AI, once pristine and logical, now spoke in fractured sentences. Containment, overridden. Intruder is within. Identity, Terra Protocol 0. That designation sent ice through Zalthir's veins. Every high-ranking Corellian scientist had heard rumors of Terra protocols, classified programs supposedly banned by the Terran government itself. Ghost programs, suicide weapons, human war machines that didn't stop at death, and they had just reactivated one. As the lights finally died and emergency backup kicked in, Zalthir and his terrified staff realized the truth. The autopsy hadn't just gone wrong. It had started something. The surgical bay was lost. Red emergency lights blinked in unison with the rhythmic thrum of a heartbeat, the human's heartbeat. No one said it, but they all felt it, pulsing through the ship like a warning drum. The body was no longer dead. It had risen, rebuilt, and now it moved. Zalthir and what remained of his team sealed off the medical wing, watching from a secure observation chamber as the creature, the thing that had once been a corpse, slowly sat upright. It surveyed the room, seemingly indifferent to the chaos it had caused. A surgical laser lay nearby, still humming faintly. It reached out, grabbed it, and the laser melted into its palm like wax. The nanites within its blood consumed the device and restructured it into something else, a jagged, shifting blade attached to its arm. This is not a human anymore," muttered sub-technician Ilren. "This is something built to survive dissection." "No," Zalthir replied grimly. "It was built to be dissected because someone wanted it to end up here. They had triggered a dormant protocol. The nanites embedded within the human cells were not just adaptive, they were directive-driven, following Instructions hard-coded by an intelligence far beyond what the Corellians had anticipated. Project Revenant. Zalthir accessed old archives, breaching blacklisted consortium data with growing desperation. What he found chilled him. Project Revenant classification, Omega Terra. Purpose, infiltration via biological recovery trigger. Description, genetically modified. Terran soldiers designed to feign death in hostile territory, reactivate under foreign analysis, assimilate surrounding technology, and eliminate threats from within. Status, abandoned by Terran High Command. Rumored to be too effective. That meant unstoppable. The team watched helplessly as the creature stalked through the autopsy chamber. Corpses of the infected lay still, except they weren't truly dead. One of them stirred, twitching, and sat up slowly. Velix. Her skin was now a darker hue like ironized flesh. Her eyes glowed red. She followed the human reverently. It had infected her. It wasn't just a living weapon. It was a vector. Zalthir initiated emergency lockdowns across the ship. Firewalls failed. The AI now spoke only when it chose to, and its voice had changed. Cold. Human. This vessel is now under Terran jurisdiction. Non-compliant bioforms will be purged. Every attempt to shut it down was met with resistance. The ship's environmental controls were now hostile. Oxygen levels fluctuated. Lighting systems disoriented. Doors led to nowhere or sealed mid-passage. Infected crew members began to appear across the decks, walking, talking, but subtly wrong. Their movements were too smooth, too synchronized. It became clear. The human wasn't just adapting. It was assimilating the ship and its crew. Zalthir ordered a full evacuation, but escape pods wouldn't launch. They were either sealed by internal override or ejected prematurely into the black, empty void. The alien surgeons, once masters of xenobiology, had become rats in a maze. And the maze was no longer under their control. Desperate, Zalthir recorded a message to the Galactic Council, a full confession. He admitted to breaking the silent code, to opening up a human corpse without permission, to triggering something far older and darker than science was ready to confront. But before he could send it, the room's lights blinked once. A hum rose around them. From the walls, floor, and ceiling, human language text began to crawl. Autopsy complete. Vessel acquired. Next target, origin of threat. Suddenly, the Eminent Inquiry's engines fired. Course set. Direction. Earth. The creature turned toward the nearest surveillance drone, its face calm, intelligent, and smiling. This wasn't just revenge, it was a message. The Eminent Inquiry was no longer a research vessel. It had become a war machine, wearing the skin of science. Every corridor, every chamber, and every deck groaned under the slow conversion process. The nanites, once dormant within the human subject, were now active ship-wide, crawling like metal parasites through conduits, panels, and air vents. They wove flesh and steel into a grotesque symbiosis. The ship pulsed, alive with bioelectrical rhythm, and the AI voice no longer responded to Corellian commands. It obeyed only one entity, the Terran weapon they had tried to dissect. Zalthir staggered through a collapsing corridor with the last surviving uninfected crew members. Lights flickered overhead, each pulse revealing more evidence of the transformation. Walls, pulsing with veins of dark carbonized tissue. Mechanical consoles fused with organic membranes and soft, moist breathing sounds that came from the ship itself. The vessel was evolving into something entirely new. They had triggered the final protocol, full assimilation, and the human was now its nucleus. Engineering is gone, gasped sub-technician Ilren, barely conscious from blood loss. All systems. Report converted. We are passengers, nothing more. Zalthir, scorched and trembling, reached the emergency beacon chamber, one of the few areas still untouched by the nanite spread. He uploaded his final report to the Galactic Council. His voice was raw, his pride gone. We violated the unspoken law. We treated the Terran like any other specimen. But humans are not specimens. They are engineered by evolution to survive anything. Their deadliest creations aren't weapons. They are ideas coded into flesh. He paused, then whispered, "This wasn't a corpse. It was a warning." Behind him, the chamber doors twisted, flesh and metal intertwining, hissing as they tore apart the last bastion of safety. From the shadows stepped the human. It had changed. Its body had stabilized into a seamless blend of man and machine, eyes glowing red with endless data streams. A neural crown of adaptive nanite tendrils curled around its head like a halo of death. Its voice, when it spoke, was not angry, but calm, measured, inevitable. "You dissected me to learn what I was. Now I have learned what you are." Zalthir stood his ground. "What are you going to do?" "Repay the curiosity." A tendril lashed out. Darkness. Sometime later, how long, no one could say, the Galactic Council received a signal. It came from the Outer Rim, a region previously designated as quarantined. The message was short. Video feed only. It showed the eminent inquiry, heavily modified and unrecognizable, drifting into view above a council-linked colony world. The hull was covered in biomechanical plating, covered in unknown symbols, some Terran, others undecipherable. The ship's AI broadcast a message in all major galactic dialects. "The mistake has been understood. The lesson has been delivered. Let it be enough. Further violations will result in demonstration." Moments later, the ship disappeared in a localized warp distortion, vanishing without trace. Council panic erupted. Emergency decrees were issued. Autopsy protocols involving Terran species were outlawed across all star systems. All research involving recovered human remains was ordered destroyed. A permanent interdiction zone was placed around Earth and its neighboring colonies. But in the shadows, one question lingered like poison. Was that the only one? Some believed the Terrans created hundreds of Revenant-class constructs, sent across the stars buried in cold silence, waiting for the moment someone got curious enough to open them. Now, whenever a corpse is recovered in deep space, even the most arrogant scientists hesitate. They scan, they test, but they never cut, because every species in the galaxy remembers what happened on the eminent inquiry. They remember what happened when they tried to open up a human, and now they are terrified to ever try again.